Oh, you already have a question before we even start? Go for it. Chuck, open us up. What's up?
I'll ask about this Mishnah. I suppose it could be asked in general. And when it, I can think of two essential ways that an opinion is based. One is I was there and this is how it was done, or we look here's the legal text. This is how it ought to be done. Do we know necessarily the Gemara when the Gemara is verbatim listing exactly word for word what the Beis Din said? This certainly sounds a lot like I was an
Like I
eyewitness.
was there and we
I
saw it.
was
This is what
there. This
happened.
is how it happened. But when the Mishnah says Rosh Beit Din Omer Mekudash, are there nuances in the grammar and the style of the Mishnah that lead us to say if this is this deduced from legal, or was this I was there and this is how it was done?
It's both. We don't know which it is when it's both and when it's one or the other. Your question is an excellent one, right? Chuck is asking, and we're on Daf Chav Daled Amud Aleph, and we'll review tonight the mission of the Gemara here on Chav Daled Amud Aleph in order to see some things in the Rambam. But it's the basic procedure once they've approved that if the Eidim have done their job, the Rosh Beit Din, Omer, Mekudesh, V'chol Hamoni Nachrav, Mekudesh, Mekudesh, Ben Shnei Rav Zmana, Ben Shelo Rav Zmana. That last piece, whether it's seen in its time or not seen in its time, meaning on Leil Lamed or on Leil Lamed Aleph, either way, we're going to have this ceremony on Yom Lamed or Yom Lamed Aleph, which is really Yom Aleph. That last clause is debated by the Mishnah, because then Rabbi Lazar Bar Tzadok Omer Im Loni Rabbi Zmanu and Mekachino to Shekvar Kishur Shemayim. If it's not seen on the night of the 30th, then on day 30, obviously we're not doing anything. But then there's no need for night 31. Eidim come or they don't come. We're not going to have this ceremony. Why? Because Mina Shemayim, they're Makadesh it. So
Debated on which basis?
Okay, but here right. So also a question, and actually this is what the Gemara itself is discussing.
Okay.
The meta conversation of the Gemara is, okay, what is the source for this? Where do we get this idea? Right? So you could have just read the Mishnah and said, well, look, there was a churban of the Beis Hamikdash, and things were in a tumult. So we're trying to remember, did they used to do it both nights, only one night? I mean, there's obviously Tanaim. So any Tana is alive before Rebbe, means before 200, the Common Era. It could have been it was in the lifetime of some of the people. They were alive in the time when there's still a Beis Hamikdash. In fact, the Beit Din Agadol was still meeting and just moved to Yavne. So, but they are somehow having a debate. Well, they do both nights or one night. All right, but that could be a function of the disruption historically, or it could be a fundamental discussion about, okay, what are we learning from the Pesukim? How are we going to learn the Pesukim about what we're meant to do? So you remember last time, we'll review it now. And the Gemara itself opened with this. Rosh Beitin v'chulei menahani mili. When the Gemara says menahani mili, well, how do we know this? Meaning, is it just on your say so? Rebbe wrote it, he redacted it because that was what people did. So it's like the luach minhagim of congregation or Torah. You're just inscribing, this is what we did last year. So he wrote it down. Or is it actually sourced in the text of the Torah? And if it is sourced in the text of the Torah, was that like the backup for what our practice is? Is it the source for why we do it?
Okay, so Menahali
can mean either of those. Yes. Yes. So Menani Mili, Amar B'chia Bar Gamda, Amar B'Yosef ben Shol, Amar Rebbe, Amar Kra, Vayidaber Moshe et Moadei Hashem. Vayidaber Moshe, he spoke out loud the holidays of Hashem. Now, Pshat, that means that Moshe told them about all the holidays. This pasuk, Vayidaber Moshe B'Hashem ben Yisrael, which we say, which people think ends with the word Savri and because it's actually a pasuk. The pasuk is Parshat Emor, the end of Parshat Moadot. That's literally what it means. But the Gemara is learning it as Vayidaber Moshe. He had to vocalize the fact that there were holidays coming. How do you vocalize it? Well, that's by saying Mekudesh, Mekudesh, Mekudesh. So Mikan Shirosh Beitin Omer Mekudesh. Then they answer V'cholam Onin Achro Mekudesh Mekudesh. Minalan. Where's that from? Amar of Papa Amar Kra Ashidikru Tam. Right, that you shall call them. So Kari Be Atem. When you look in the Sefer Torah, it's spelled Aleph Taf Mem. You could read that as Ashikru Otam with a cholam, or you could read it as Atem. So Ashikru Atem. Now, why is the Gemara doing that? First of all, there's flexibility on purpose in the Torah Shebichtav. That's one of the layers of drasha, right? Is the Yesh aim lamikra, yesh aim lamasoret. Remember, we've learned this before. I didn't invoke it here, but are you following what's written or how it's pronounced? Which one, if you had to line them up, which one takes precedence over the other? We had this in Masechet Sukkah on the question of is it two and a little bit for the third wall, or is it three and a little bit? Was on the word sukkot spelled without both vavs. So sukkat, sukkot, sukkat. Okay, but here there's no contest. It's just what's the source? Why did it say Mekudesh back? Oh, because it says in the pasuk Asher tikru otam mikrai kodesh, but it's written Asher tikru atem. So one of the drushes of that word atem is you call it out loud. The people, plural, have to say that it's going to be the new month. So the Rosh Beitin says Mekudesh, and then they respond Mekudesh, Mekudesh. We still don't know. Is this like an asmachta because this was the Masorah that we had from Moshe Rabbeinu, and like, oh, and by the way, tack it onto these psukim, or is this a halacha that's a drasha from the psukim themselves? And it's a question, yeah. It's not really resolved. We're not told, right? So you have here Karibe Atem. Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar Elahim Moadai Haim Yomer Moadai Mekudesh Trezim Nilamali. So I need it twice, right? Dichtiv Mikrai Kodesh two, right? Okay.
Yeah. That's the reason why it has to say Mekudesh.
Because it says the Daber al Bnei Yisrael Marta Alehem Moadei Hashem Ashnikru Otam Atem Mikrai Kodesh. Elahem Moadai.
So one Mekudesh wouldn't be sufficient then.
Right. That's what's Mikrai Kodesh, because the plural of Mikrae, the calling outs, the declarations is really the word that you would translate as the declarations of the holiday. So who makes the declarations of the seasons? The people say Mekudesh, Mekudesh, both. They respond, right? That are there. So that's the drasha. And that is not disputed that that's what's going to happen. What's going to be disputed is the next piece. On which nights is that true? Three-way machloket. On which nights? Is it on the first night? Again, it's not really nights. Really, sorry, I should say it more precisely. The declaration is going to be made during the daytime.
Yeah, because you don't say.
Daytime 30 or daytime 31. I'm calling it 31. There's no such thing as 31. It becomes 1, no matter what. So the Chachamim say, you're going to do it on both times because there's a need for the declaration to be made by the Beit Din. We just learned the psukim. So whenever you want to make Rosh Chodesh, it's going to have to be declared by Beit Din. The next opinion, the Rebbe Elazar ben Tzadok disagrees. He says, no, on the first night, you have to because you saw it, and therefore the ceremony is required because you're making it happen based on having seen it. And day 29 goes into day 30, which then becomes called day 1 when the sun rises, and they call the Beit Din together. But Or if the witnesses, by the way, come during the daytime. The witnesses didn't always come the night. They might have gotten there the next morning or the next early afternoon. We're going to see that now in the Rambam because he puts everything together so well. It's the Rambam. This is amazing. But maybe the second night of Rosh Chodesh, so to speak, who cares if the witnesses come or not? It doesn't matter. And the next day, day 31, you don't need a Beit Din to convene in the morning and announce, Mekudesh, Mekudesh, Mekudesh. Who cares? It was already mitkadesh min hashamayim because the month can never be more than 30 days. Right. So when you hit day 31 in the calendar, mimanav shach, it's the new month. You don't need the people to ratify what's actually a natural phenomenon. You follow? Min hashamayim is mekudesh. It's already the next month.
That would be a very strong argument to negate the requirement of the pasuk that the determination of the month should be on the day 80.
Excellent. And this is part of the issue, is the mechanism of the determination of the new month, Al Yedei the Edim, a declaration that is only in a certain, if you take this view, the second view, then it's like, well, we only need to say Mekudesh, Mekudesh, Mekudesh if we have a hand in it. But if we didn't, so remember this drasha on the pasuk, etc. Yeah, man, lo tzarich. Yeah, that's Rebbe Elazar ben Tzadok, right? But if it was a drasha gemura from the psukim that this is what you have to do, so how could you do it on the first night, but not the second night? The people have to declare that it's a new month, but they didn't, right? So it's a negation of the idea that it's like somehow in the hands of the Beit Din at all times. It's the hands of the Beit Din within a certain bandwidth. If the witnesses will come and they'll have the procedure. Now, Plamo, who I know nothing about, Plamo, that was literally his name. Plamo had a third idea, a mind-bending idea. He says, if it's the first night, you don't have to do Mekudesh. But if it's the second night, then you do. Why? Seems seems so backwards. But that's what you have the next line, and that's a three-way machloket that now the Gemara will try to parse. Okay, what are these shitot about?
Second night, meaning because the Eidim came
I don't know.
the morning of the second night, or because everybody knows that a month can't have more than 30 days.
Yeah, then why do you need the people? Why would you need the Beit Din to say Mekudesh, Mekudesh, Mekudesh? I understand the logic of Elazar ben Sadok. If the Adam came, then it's in human hands. You can make the argument that in human hands, they saw the moon. There's a procedure for bringing in the Chodesh in that way. It's the Beit Din HaGadol Shalim. I get it. And Rabbi Elazar ben Sadok's logic makes sense the other way also. Again, it negates the koach of the chachamim they're really in charge. It says, "It was already mekudesh min hashamayim." If the witnesses don't come, Leil Lamed or Yom Lamed, and now it's sunset, and now it's Yom Lamed Aleph, you don't need witnesses to come one way or the other. It's automatically Yom Aleph of the next month. There's never day 31 of a month.
You never need witnesses.
Right. On the 31st day, you don't need them. So I get it. Yeah. But Plamo says, fakert. Plamo says, if they come, the witnesses come on Leil Lamed or Yom Lamed, the Beit Din doesn't have to say Mekudesh and Mekudesh, Mekudesh. But if no witnesses come, and then it's the night of Lamed Aleph, the Beit Din doesn't convene. So the next morning, Lamed Aleph, which is really Aleph, everybody knows, then the Beit Din convenes, and the Rosh Beit Din says Mekudesh, and they say Mekudesh, Mekudesh. But you had no hand. I got the logic. It was already Mekudesh Alidei Min Hashamayim. That's what Elazar ben Sadok said. And I could understand the Chachamim's view, which is affirming that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the keys to humanity. And yes, it's true that astronomically on the second day of Rosh Chodesh, if the witness didn't come, it's automatically day one. But still, the form, the ceremonial component that the Beit Din says, but we declare Mekudesh, is still in place. I could hear the logic of both of those, but Plamo, it's hard to understand what he's talking about, and that's what we're going to see in the Gemara now. Yes?
Nobody's saying anything about structure and consistency. Just for structure and consistency.
Yes, Chachamim are.
So that's what.
That's Chachamim. Structure, consistency.
Based on that. Once you start peeling things away, we see what happens with conservative form.
Okay, but hold on. Yeah. Those are different assumptions and beliefs.
I'm saying you're peeling.
Right. Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok is saying, the only time it's necessary for you to say Mekudesh and Mekudesh, Mekudesh, and the back and the forth and a declaration of the Beit Din is when the Beit Din is actually doing something. But to spin the wheels and just to say it for its own sake, it doesn't. What's that accomplishing? Sure. But then it's kind of negating the idea that it's really in the hands of it's only in the hands of the Chachamim if it happens to be on that time. And that's why it's back to Chuck's original excellent question. If these drushes are drushot gemurot, they only apply the first night and not the second night. I just finished telling you this is the derived from the pasuk. It says in the pasuk Davka Vayidaber Moshe. It means that the Rosh Beit has to announce Mekudesh, and then Chiguratam Moadei Hashem Mikrai Kodesh. Have to say Mekudesh back, but not the second night. Where did you get that idea from? In the psukim, and no one bothers to say. How come? So now let's go in the Gemara. It's Plamo. I'm on the 3 lines up in the narrow lines over here, bottom of the end of the narrow lines, right? So Tanya Plamo Omer Bismano ein Mekachinoto, Shlo Bisman Mekachinoto.
The opposite.
Opposite, right. So Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, and that's in brackets and parentheses and the whole thing. Everyone's trying to figure out who is this, and maybe it's not really Rabbi Shimon, it's Rabbi Elazar Bar Tzadok, who was originally quoted in the Mishnah, and how could it be him? But what does he say? He says, Benkach ubenkach ein Mekachinoto. There's a fourth shita I didn't tell you before. You never have to do the ceremony. And we're back to Chuck's question. There's psukim that tell you have to do it. No, that's just according to the Chachamim. But Rabbi Elazar and it can't be Bar Tzadok. That's what the footnote here points out. That it can't be the same guy because he's quoted in the Mishnah saying you're Makadosh the first night and not the second night. So, right? So who is this? Mr. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, possibly. So what's his source? Oh, there's a pasuk there also. Shnemar v'kidashtem et shnata chamishim. You have to be Makadesh the 50th year through some kind of ceremony declaring it in the Beit Din as Mekudesh. Shanim ata Makadesh, v'ata Makadesh chodashim. I mean, that's not even mentioned. These last 2 opinions are not even in the Mishnah. They're brightot. Am Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel halachik Rabbi Elazar Bar Tzadok. Falls below Bar Tzadok. Yeah, which is first night yes, second night not. Amar Abai af anan nami tanena. I also have a bright along these lines. Ra'u beitin v'chol Yisrael nachkru ha'edim v'lo yispiku lomar b'kudosh. So the whole beitin and the whole Jewish nation sees it. It's like one of those months where it's just picture perfect. Everybody saw it. Everybody's walking around saying, "Oh, good chodesh." They know it's not. The Beit didn't declare. Yeah, they can declare in the morning. Don't worry. Yeah, everybody knows. So nachkru edim, and they, let's say they were somehow they were choker the edim, but v'lo yispiku lomar b'kudosh ad shechashecha. So day 30 comes, and I don't know how this happened, but this is what happened. Okay, everybody. It's lahavdil. It was a Kitty Genovese effect, Everybody's going to take care of it, and no one takes care of it.
Amen.
Yeah, famous sad case. This is a happy version. Everyone says, "Oh, where are the Edom? They're coming. Don't worry. You want to be the Edom? No. There's probably a million people lining up. We're not going." Finally, two shlochs come in from I don't know where, from somewhere out of town, huffing and puffing. We saw it. It's 4 p.m. Sunset at 4:20. They convene the Bezdin and they say, "Okay, go in for the first guy. Go in room. We're going to check you." Second guy, they come out at 4:19. Okay, get the Bezdin together. We don't have a Bezdin. One guy stepped out to the restroom. I don't know. Now it's after sunset. It's too late. We missed it. But every Jew knew that it was already Rosh Chodesh today. But we didn't declare Makudesh. It's too late. The sun set, and now it's a new day. So in that case, it's already dark outside. Uber.
That's interesting.
It's already
If everybody saw it
it wouldn't be enough.
and they figured, well, Basin is going to declare it today, and they all
Right.
said Hallel on that day.
So there's a question there. The citation of Hallel is, believe it or not, a minhag on Rosh Chodesh.
So we can start at 6:20 on Friday.
Okay. Minhag. The recitation of Hallel on Rosh Chodesh is strictly a minhag. Sfaradim do not recite a bracha on Hallel on Rosh Chodesh because it's not mandated as a halacha psuka. This will, for the Zionists in the room, so it leads right into the conversation about Hallel with a bracha, without a bracha, on various special days. Yom Ha'atzmaut, Elliot's right. We'll take that up. But it's related. It's related. If it's a minhag, but it's not the halacha. So the question, if you make a bracha, when is it warranted? And by the by, on days of rescue, days of salvation, days of miracle for the whole Jewish people. So that's when we start singing Hallel with a bracha. But the question was, why sing Hallel on Rosh Chodesh? What's the salvation and the right? So it has to do with all sorts of beautiful ideas, but it's not a halacha psuka. Was there something else I was going to say about this? The bigger question is, what about Musaf? So nobody's davening Musaf because they have a korban Musaf, but they don't bring the korban Musaf until the Edom have declared, and they said Mekudesh Mekudesh, and they run down the hall, not down the hall, outside the courtyard from the Beit Din, from the Beis Din Agadol, and Lishkas Gadol, and they say, "Okay, no Musaf," but it's not enough time left. It's stuck. Wait, Art had to stand up first, and then go to.
I'm making a comment. This Friday not say a bracha on Rosh Chodesh, where they do say a bracha, they say a different bracha from what we say. They say we glory Hallel.
It's not related to. You're just in general. You're just saying that. Yeah, I'm saying. Okay, you're gonna say.
Yeah, if Adim didn't come, just by virtue of the passage of time, there's no carbon.
Right. We're going to see that now. We're going to see it actually in the Rambam. It's quoting from the Gemara in Beitz on Daf Daled, and it's in Rosh Hashanah also later on. So just look at, just see it here. So it's Meuber in Mekudesh lo, right? So wait, Meuber yes, but Mekudesh no. Meuber it's strichale. But I had to say that it's Meuber. Why? Sakadaita chamina holvrau beitim choisel ifarsma v'loli abrua kamash malan. You might have thought that since all the Jewish people, including the High Court, since they saw it and all the Jews saw it, and everybody knows, you would think good enough because they saw it. No, but if they didn't actually say Mekudesh, it's not Rosh Chodesh on first day. The second day, it's automatic. That's what it will be. Okay, all of this takes us to sort of I guess you could say I'll say it's essentially the end of the setting up the procedural components of Kiddush HaChodesh. But now you got to open the Rambam. The same about Kiddush is a Chodesh inside.
I took your
Pardon?
shot by mistake.
No, I have this. I'm not using that. Yeah.
You raised a good question. I mean, we learned in the Gemara that if the Edom came too late for the Beit Din to be Mekadesh, then it doesn't count. But then you talked about Korban Musaf, that it has to be done after the Beit Din declared it. So what happens if they just make it? The guy didn't go out to the bathroom and they declared Rosh Chodesh at 4:17. How did they do Korban Musaf in that little amount of time?
If I was more adept at the Rambam, I would tell you which halacha it's in, but I can tell you it's within the first two parakim, Hachodesh, and that's why we're reading it. Join me. It's a great question, but that became part of the problem. So Chodshei Hashanah hem Chodshei Halavana. I'm over here in Kiddush HaChodesh, Perak Rishon Lachav. The Rambam in his characteristic way, and you'll understand what he's doing because we just learned the whole thing. So he's going to go step by step. Okay, this. Okay, but he organizes it in such a way. So first of all, sorry, Hilchot Kiddush HaChodesh on the top. Mitzvah Aseh Achat, one mitzvah Aseh, which is V'hilachashev V'leida V'likboa Be'ezi Yom Hu Tchilat Kol Chodesh V'Chodesh Mechodshei Hashanah. There is actually a mitzvah Aseh. Look how he wrote it. To calculate, to know, and to establish which day is the beginning of every month from the months of the year. Perak Rishon, Halacha Aleph. Chodshei Hashanah, Hem Chodshei Halavana, Shenemar Olat Chodesh Bechodsho, V'nemar HaChodesh Elechem Rosh Chodeshim. So, right, the months of the moon, right? That's the months of the year. Fine. Kach Amru Chachamim. Herlo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe b'Mara HaNevuah Dmut Levana v'Amarlo Kazer Re'eh Kadesh. Shem showed him what the moon would look like. Medrash Tanchuma, you have this, and the Rambam codifies it, right? So in other words, the roots of it are psukim, but also the fact that the Ribbono Shel Olam gave him a mitzvah, Kazer Re'eh Kadesh, which oftentimes is quoted as the part of Moshe Rabbeinu Nitkasha Moshe. He wasn't sure something about how the moon would look, which now we understand actually is much more of a subtle thing to look at and to find and to see than we originally might have thought before. But it's more than that. The Rambam is saying, Kazeh Ra'eh V'Kadesh. The highlight for the Rambam is on Kadesh, right? Or Ra'eh V'Kadesh. See means calculate. See means to know, and then sanctify as an act of mitzvah. V'ashanim shenu mechashvim hem shnei hachama. Shneimar shamor et chodesh aviv. The years that we calculate are the years of the sun. Keep the Chodesh of Aviv. We say in English, the spring. Bet. V'kami yiterish nalachama al shana levana, karov mechad asar yom. About 11 days, difference between solar and lunar calendars. L'fichach. Kshitkabetz min atosafet azot, kmo 30 yom o pachot me'at, o yeter me'at, mosifin chodesh echad, ve'osin ota hashana, 13 chodesh, v'yinikret shana me'uberet. When there's a discrepancy of 30 or so days, right? Because every year they're losing about 11 days. So every 3 years, you're up 30 days off. So then you add a 13th month. You cannot have leftover days after you've calculated months. A year is calculated in months, chodshei hashana, not yemei hashana. Okay. I talked about this a lot on Bein Mincha L'Marav, on Rosh Hashanah, and especially on Sukkot, about the calendar and about the 10 days discrepancy between the two, and 10 days and 10 days, 10 days. Okay, but not for now. Okay. The moon is concealed every month and is invisible approximately 2 days, or a little bit less than 2 days, or a little bit more than 2 days of every month. Kmo yom echad kodem, shetidbak b'shemesh b'sof hachodesh, uchmo yom echad achar, shetidbak b'shemesh v'tireh b'ma'arav ba'erev. So it's approximately 1 day, depending on the time of year, before it actually cleaves to the sun. In English, conjunction. There's no shadow being cast by the moon because it's perfectly aligned with the sun, so you don't see it. So, and then there's another day when the two are just moving off of each other, so that the sun, when it goes down, the moon is trailing it a little bit instead of them being in lockstep, trailing it a little bit. Yeah, and so it goes each time. It's right. Okay, you got it. So here we are, and it explains. Uvalel shetira be'erev achar shenistera hu tchilat hachodesh umonim oto yom tisha ve'esrim yom. On the night that you will see, on the night after it was hidden, the first time you see it, that's the beginning of a new month, and we count 29 days from there. Ve'im yireh hayarech leil shloshim yom shloshim rosh chodesh. If the moon is seen on the 30th night, So then the 30th day is Rosh Chodesh. V'im lo yireh Rosh Chodesh Yom Echad v'Shloshim. If it's not seen, Rosh Chodesh is on day 31. V'yom Shloshim Mei Chodesh She'avar. And day 30 reverts to being from the previous month. All right, just stays as is. We don't need to see the moon on the 31st night. Doesn't matter. There cannot be a lunar month that is more than 30 days. It just can't happen. So after 30 full days have gone by, day one of the next month, no matter what. Halacha Daled. Like, say, this year is Mar Cheshvan, is a Chodesh Chaser, 29 days. Right? And Friday is first of Kislev. Don't take me off track because I'll go down that rabbit hole and it'll ruin the whole share. Okay, but Aaron and I have been on this case. Yeah. Okay. V'im lo yirah yirech v'yah chodesh she'avar shloshim yom nikra chodesh me'ubar. So it's chaser or me'ubar. We call me'ubar also malay. V'nikra chodesh malay. Right there. V'yarech she'yirah b'leil shloshim hu nikra yirech she'nira bizmano. If it's on the night of the 30th, that's you saw it in its time. It's seen on the night of its ibur. Iburo means it's bulge, because pregnancy is the woman's stomach is bulging. Yeah, so it's the bulge. It's a bulging month because it's got 30 full days, and 31st day is day one of the next month. Halacha hey, ein riyad hayerech mesur lechol adam kimo Shabbat Bereshit. Shekol echad, next page. Mona shisha v'shaved b'shvi. Who's in charge of telling you when Shabbos is? Everybody knows when it is. Every Jew knows when it is. Just count 6 days, 7th day Shabbos. El beitin adavar masur. When it comes to the months, it goes according to the beitin. Achi katshu beitin v'yikbeu oto ayom Rosh Chodesh hushi Rosh Chodesh. Shenemar hachodesh hazel lachem edut zu tehei masur lachem. You have to do this as a community. The Jewish community, the Jewish people. Not that every individual is going to look up, hey, Rosh Chodesh for me and not for you. You didn't see it? Well, it's Rosh Chodesh for me. It's collective. As opposed to Shabbos, which is for every individual. Halacha Vav. Beitim mechashvim becheshbonot kedersh mechashvim ma'itzdagninim shiod'im mekomot ha'kochavim u'mahalcham v'chokrim u'medaktikim ad sheyed'u im efshar sheyira ha'yirech bizmano shu lo shosim o efshar. The Beitin calculates like the astrologers, or you could say the other word for this is the astronomers, because back in the day, they were almost coterminous, right? The astrologers were finding meanings in the whole thing. The astronomers, later on, by the way, when these two things start to get separated out, even in the works of Chazal, they call it the Chochman HaTchuna. It means the characteristics. It means astronomy. Atchuna. But in the Rambam, he's calling it stagnim. Like he's stagnim, they know the whole thing, right? Now remember, we learned this in depth already. Why do we need to know the constellations, and because it's going to tell you what season you're in. It's going to tell you, and the difference between where the moon is within that constellation will tell you what day of the month it is, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that's what we saw last time on the phones when we were playing around with the little lines in between each day of the month. Remember?
George, yeah.
On the iPhone. So we were looking at it, and then George showed us his amazing thing. So here. So they have to know the places of the stars. And they go u'malcham, where they go v'chokim v'dakim shedu im efshar. Is it possible to see the moon on its time, which is the 30th night, or is it impossible? Im yedu she'efshar shira yoshvin mitzapin le'edim kol hayom kulo shel yom shloshim. If they know that it's possible, we're 29 days in, tonight's leil shloshim, so they're waiting. Maybe we'll get this. Maybe the edim will come now. Im bo edim v'darshum v'chakrum kahalacha v'ne'emnu divrayim v'kachinoto. If they checked them, they came and they checked them, etc. So then Mikadosh the Chodesh. V'imloni revelobao edim mashlim mishloshim v'ya Chodesh meubar. Then fine. The next day, that night it's already the next month. V'im yadu b'chashban she'af shashira ein yoshim yom shloshim v'emitzapim le'edim. If they did a certain calculation, they realized the 30th day cannot be a day in which they see the moon for reasons the Ram gets into later. Right? Then they wouldn't sit and wait for the Eidim because they don't expect them to come. If you understand what he's saying? He's saying that the Chamim actually knew exactly when things were going to happen. Yeah. They knew already. They calculated. They understood when it was going to happen. If they showed up and it was a night that the Chamim already had calculated is not actually the right night for the moon to show up, then they're not waiting for them. They don't care. Halacha Zayin. Mitzvah se min Torah al beitin. Listen to careful language of the Rambam. Sheichashvu, they should calculate. V'yedu, and they should know im yirah hayirach o lo yirah. I thought that really the mitzvah was they should be waiting every day. Oh, maybe Adam will come, and they should test them. And if the Adam check out, then they'll say the next day Mekudesh Mekudesh, and that's the mitzvah. No, the Rambam says the mitzvah is that they have to be astronomers. I mean, not actually astronomers. They have to know enough astronomy to know how to calculate this. V'shiyidrashu at Adam. The second stage, they're going to seek out the witnesses. They're going to test them till they're going to Mekadesh Chodesh. V'yishalchu. Then they're going to send it out. V'yodu at Shar Ha'am. Be'ezi Yom Hu Rosh Chodesh. Kedei sheyedu be'ezi Yom Heina Moadot. So they'll know when the holidays are. They're going to tell them. Shinamar.
But isn't that obvious? Because we say Asher Tikro Talmud Moada. So it would
Obvious to who? To the Chachamim?
Yeah.
It's not obvious because it depends on what month it is, how likely it is to actually see the new moon on Leil 30. It's not always possible. Certain times of the year, believe it or not. Not just because of weather considerations, because of constellation considerations. So they're just not waiting because they're going to happen.
So you can't see the month. So you can't see the moon during that. In that.
Yeah, you should be. You would think that you should be able to, but depending on what your longitude is, your latitude rather, in planet Earth, which is where it's Yisrael is, it's actually a more complicated venture. The Rambam gets into it. There's like how many chapters? 19 chapters. He goes, yeah, it's 19 chapters. So in chapter 19, which I did give you, which you scan with your eyes, just makes you dizzy. He's going through the constellation and the number of degrees and the but whatever. We're not getting there tonight probably. So Shinamar Chikro Tamikrai Kodesh V'Nemar V'Shemada Chuka Zot L'Moada. So based on those things, it tells you have to announce it and then you have to send it out and tell people when Yom Tov is. Einu Chas Mekovim Chodashim Abrim Shanim Ela Be'eretz Yisrael Shinamar Ki Mitzion Teitzei Torah Udvar Hashem Mirushalayim. You thought it was just the rabbi's rhetorical flourish in the pasuk from Yeshaya and Micha when the person gets up from Eretz Yisrael. Turns out all of Kiddush HaChodesh is based on the idea this has to be centered on Eretz Yisrael. But it could also be a person who came from Eretz Yisrael. This is the method to my madness. V'im haya adam gadol b'chochma v'nismach be'eretz Yisrael v'yatza l'chutza la'aretz v'lo yiniach ba'eretz Yisrael k'moto. So it's like the gadol hador. He got smicha in Eretz Yisrael. He left Eretz Yisrael, and there's no one left in Eretz Yisrael who is on that person's stature. That person will be entitled to calculate and to be koveya the chodashim. You know why? Because they're a walking embassy of Eretz Yisrael. That's what he's saying. They represent the mantle of Torah from Eretz Yisrael. What?
That implies that there's no Sanhedrin.
Oh, so the question is: do you need a Sanhedrin Gadol or do you need a Beit Din of 3? You need a Beit Din of 3, but it can't be any Beit Din of 3. It's a Beit Din of 3 that's appointed by the Jewish people. So who appoints that? So if it's a Gadol Hador. There's a story that perhaps Rabbi Akiva did this at some point in Bavel. That he ran there and he came back. The whole story. And then he was killed in Eretz Yisrael. But v'imnodolo shenaseh Eretz Yisrael adam gadol kimoto. But if the person finds out that in Eretz Yisrael, to me this whole thing is other than like Rabbi Akiva, it's pretty theoretical, right? They're going to tell the guy in Bavel, you're the gadol hador, but we found someone who's greater than you in Israel. Oh, okay, fine. So like, and there's no means of communication. Like maybe I'm greater. No, he's greater. Trust me, he's greater. But 10 minutes ago, you told me I'm the greatest guy. We didn't mean it. It's like, again, even if they're totally humble and all of that, it's like, but that's what it says. If he finds out, if there's someone as great, and then it goes out saying someone's greater than him, then it would be forbidden to make that kviyut happen in chutz la'aretz. He did 0. Again, like just to take some examples over here. Like who's greater, Rav Moshe Feinstein or Shlomo Zalman Auerbach? What is this like? What do they call it? Like some kind of like a rumble? Do they get the people together? Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky or Baron Kotler? This is better. How are you going to figure that out?
It was a Satmar.
What? It's not right. The Satmar Rebbe, the Vision Rebbe. So we can't live like that.
Which Satmar Rebbe?
Which Satmar Rebbe? Right. Okay. Let the record show this is the first and maybe the last time in our shir we'll be referencing the Satmar Rebbes in plural, or Rebbe or Rebbes. Okay, so that's Parak Aleph. Again, it doesn't require much discussion. It's just a great. I thought when I was learning through this, okay, when we finish this, we got to go through this inside because he organized it and he tells you in Seder how it works. And I will come back at some point, Bli Neder, to an actual beautiful, amazing shir from Rav Moshe Soloveitchik in a volume. It's actually the Rav. It's Rav Yosef Dovalev Soloveitchik in a sefer that he wrote together with Shiurim with his father. published posthumously, which is all about this idea of the Kiddush HaChodesh and the connection to Eretz Yisrael and Am Yisrael. It's amazing. I learned it many years ago. I think I gave it as a shiur here. I'm going to guess 17 years ago, maybe 18 years ago in Parshat Bo. I think that was the last. Anyway, whatever the case may be, it was a Shabbos. It was a Shabbos. Anyway, so amazing. But it's Eretz Yisrael. But the Ram already in the first paragraph wants you to know this whole thing is about Eretz Yisrael, and then he's going to come up to the question later. Okay, but we're not in Eretz Yisrael, and yet we don't have Kiddush HaChodesh. So the whole question of who is Makadosh the Chodesh in Eretz Yisrael, that then after that's why I have in every shul someone usually named Ira. So now it's the Moilad. It's in Yerushalayim. It's not in New York City. What's happening in Yerushalayim? We're connected. We're tethered to Yerushalayim wherever we are. So we not want to know the Moilad over there because it impacts us here as well. Parak bet. Ein kasher la'edid hachodesh el shnei anashim ksherim hayim la'id b'chol davar v'davar. Right? You have to be kosher witnesses to bring the edud. Aval nashim va'avadim. Harein kishapsu le'edud ve'emidin. They cannot. Right? They're not obligated. They don't have to run, but they can't be witnesses. Avu b'no shiro areach yech lebeitin la'id. If a father and a son saw it, a father and a son cannot testify together. But if they saw it together, they go to the Beit Din to make the declaration. Why? If one of them we found to be non-kosher, so at least we'll have one aid that saw it. Maybe another guy will show up, and there'll be another kat of aidim. Maybe that one of them, maybe gazlan, they find some other reason why he's puzzled. Mishara paslanut. Yitztaref hasheni im acher v'ya'id. V'chol hapsul le'edut midivrei sofrim afu yishkasher min haTorah pasal edut chodesh. If you're pasal midivrei sofrim for whatever reason, the gambling, the whatever, you can't be an aid for edut chodesh. Bet din Torah she'im medaktik edut chodesh. The din Torah is you don't have to use some medaktik with the aid of the chodesh. Shafilu kitcho at a chodesh al pi edim yivanimtzu zomin be'edut zu harezim hakodesh. Because the truth is, even if it turns out they're Eidim Zomi, the two witnesses come and they say, oh, we saw the moon, and they, oh, Makudish, and then two other people come running in and they say, you were with us. The whole thing's a lie. It's still Makudish. Because they went through they ran through the gauntlet, it's okay. Lefichach, therefore, Hayuba Rishon Mekablin, Eidu Chodesh Mikol Adam Yisrael, Shekol Yisrael B'chesket Kashrut, Ad Sheyivadalecha Shezeh Pasol. Till you know there's a reason to pasel somebody. In the beginning, everybody was kosher. You're a Jew, is a Jew. Every yid is a Halig yid, is a tzaddik, and it's all good. Mishakil kulu aminim. But when the heretics came and tried to ruin things, what did they do? They would hire people to wreck the whole system. Because if you mess up when Yom Tov is, then the Jews aren't really keeping the Yom Tov, and we can destroy Judaism from within, God forbid. So then when that happened, now they had to only have witnesses, professional people who worked for the Beit Din, who they knew, who lived in different places, the scouts. If they didn't know them, not going to accept them. Lefichach.
But
If they didn't know them,
But why was it okay then with Adam Zomimim, who may not have even seen it? What's the difference between that?
because the point was they had done the calculation and they expected they were going to come. So it's true that in the end they were Zomimim, but we still say Atem Afilu Sholem Afilu. But these people were actually trying in a concerted way, month over month, to just destroy the system by coming in early, coming in late, wreck everything. Well, not early actually, try to ruin it. So Lefichach, next page. Im lo hayu beitin yodim et ha'edim. Right? Shiro Eirech Mishachinan Shair Shniraba Ima Edim Shiro Edim Acherim Shemizakin Otan Lebeitin Umodin Otan Sheelik Shem Haim Vachakam Kabmehem. That is send like two people to authenticate that these witnesses are really good people. They're not the two people who saw it, the two people who know the witnesses. It's like at the beginning of Gittin when we learned it. Yeah? Remember the Edom to authenticate the Edom.
Right.
I'm just tonight's like a callback to all the Shiurim past, the ghosts of Shiurim past. Halacha dal. Beitim mechashvim b'drachim she'stagnin mechashvim bahem. They have to calculate in the way the astrologers do. V'yodin halavana kshetira b'chodesh zeh im tiyat safona shemesh or bidroma, to the north of the sun or to the south of the sun. V'im tiyat rechava uktsara, wide or narrow. Ulehechan yu rosh karna notin. Which direction are the tips of the horns of the moon that's visible in the crescent? Where do they point? Ushiavoa Edom Ha'id Bodkinotam Ketzed Reitim Ota B'Tzafona B'Darom Leichenu Karnea Notot Kama Haita Gvoha B'Ri'ad Einechem V'Kama Haita Rechava Im Nimtzu Divrei Mechuvanin L'Masnod L'Cheshbon. If what they said matched what they knew from the calculation, Mekablim Otan. V'im lo nimtzu divrei mechuvanim, ein mekablim otam. So, and then halacha hey, if they said we saw it in the water, amra edim re'inu ba'amayim, o ba'avim, o ba'ashashit, we saw it reflected off of a cloud, or someone reflected off of glass. O shiro miksato, birakio miksato ba'avim, part covered by the clouds, part in the sky. O ba'mayim ba'ashashit, ein zuri'i, avim makachin al ri'azot. We saw this in the Gemara, remember? Right? Part and part, also no good. Top of this page. Amar of Gemara. Amar echad ri'itiv gavoa be'enai, kmo shtei komot, v'amar sheni kmo shtalosh komot, haya gavoa, mitzarfin. It's off by one, that's okay. Amar echad kmo shalosh komot, v'asheni amar kmo chamesh komot, ein mitzarfin. Not going to work. When we start echad mehem im sheni, shi'a'id kmoto, o yiyah beinein koma achat. So he could find someone else who came to Yerushalayim, and they could pair up. Amru ri'inu b'lo kavana. They said we saw it, but we weren't paying attention. Right? Liroto. We tried. Now we had kavana together. La'id. Shuvlori. We didn't see it. So ain't so edud. V'mekachin. It's not going to work. Shema avim nit kashru. V'niro kilavana. V'kalu v'alchlehem. Maybe it was clouds that they saw. They mistook it, and now they dissipated. Amru edim. They said re'inu b'yom tisha ve'esrim shachri b'mizrach kodem shtal ha'shemesh. V'rainu arvi b'mara below shloshim. Harei l'nemanim v'kachim al-riyazu shaharei ra'u bismano. The part that we take is the part that we need. Aval re'iyah shamru shira'u b'shachrit and iskakin la she'enenu achrayin l're'iyah shachrit. That for sure was a mistake. Uviyadua sha'avim heim shenit kashru v'nira lehem kilavana. Right? Because we just finished saying the first time you could see the sliver of the moon is after a full day of not seeing the moon. So how could it be that at sunrise they saw the moon also? That must be a mistake. We don't say, well, if you made a mistake on that, the other part falls apart. We say instead, ignore the first part of what we said, we take the second part, and we'll trust that. Yeah? So now, okay. So, let's go over here. So Zion just tells you how were they mikabel the Eid Hachodesh, right? Anyone could come, and they would have food there, and they'd bring the elder one in, or the greater one in. They would test them until halacha Zion, okay? And they would do everybody, so no one would feel bad. They wasted their time to come, right? Okay. Then halacha Chet. So after they did it, Makudesh, you have that right here, yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay, and it says you need 3, not 71. 3, it's all you need. Even if the whole Beit Din saw it, and all the Jews saw it, and they didn't say Makudesh in time, and it was already dark, or the Eidim were checked, and it didn't have enough time, so it's Me'uber, right? And it won't be Rosh Chodesh, except for day 31. Because the Re'iyah is not Kovea, it's only the Beit Din declaring it. Halacha Tet, if the Beit Din saw it and no one showed up, and now it's the 30th night, right? At the end of the 29th day, the end of the 29th day, they saw it, and the stars didn't come out yet on Leil Shloshim, and the Beit Din said Mekudesh, so it would be good. The next day would be Rosh Chodesh immediately. And they saw on the night of the 30th, after the stars came out, so the next day they would take from the Beit Din, 2 Dayanim would come in, two new Dayanim, this Beit Din is of 3. 2 new Dayanim would come in and sit with the one guy, and the other 2 who saw it would stand as the Eidim, and they would speak to the 3 who are sitting in front of them. That would be good enough. You didn't need all 71. Then halacha Yud, Beit Din Shekitshu, I'm on the next page. Beit Din Shekitshu at a Chodesh, Bein Shogi Ben Muatin, Bein Anusin, Harei Zeh Mekudesh, V'chayavin Hakol, L'takein HaMoadot. You had to listen to the Moadot, right? That they were Mekadesh. Al Bishazeh Yada Shetau. And we should severely shmor hamoadot utzivali smach aleim shenemash tikru otam. Whatever is decided by the Beit Din, that is done. It's finished. That's all that will be. You have to listen to what the Beit Din says, even if you know for sure they're wrong. Even if the Beit Din decides they're wrong, it's too late. They did it. It's done. Parak Gimel. I have like 2 more minutes because at 8:15 I have the kids coming to my house. Edim Shor Chodesh. Im haya b'neim b'neim makom sheyesh bo Beit Din mahalach laila v'yom o pachot. They're going to go. They're going to try to get to the Beit Din in time on day 30. But if it's too far, it's going to be too late. There's no point to go. Next page. Shabbat, it gives you all what they're going to do. Yeah, they're going to go, even on Shabbos they're going to go. Fine. Skip to the next page, halacha hey, because that's what Art asked about. I want to end with this. Halacha Hey and Vav. They would do it all day long. But what happened? The Edom came late in the day on day 30. Ad Ben Arba'im was already the late afternoon. Didn't know what to do with the base of Mikdash. Because after the Ol Ben Arba'im, they don't do Musaf. It's too late. So what happened? I'm debating Vidkinu. They made a takana. Why? Yeah. So it's too late. Osin tamash ben arbayim. Vim ba'u edim in a mincha ulamala. No hagin oto ayam kodesh lamachar kodesh makrivim musaf lamachar. If they came from mincha and onward after korban ben arbayim, there was still some mekudesh. That day was Rosh Chodesh, and the next day was Rosh Chodesh, and the next day was when they would give the korban musaf. Lefi shalei makachim oto achar mincha. Therefore, they just made it on day 31. But day 1, they would call Rosh Chodesh, 2-day Rosh Chodesh, essentially. Mishachar ben Hamikdash, hitkin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai betino, she makabim it a chodesh kol hayom kulo, because there's no korban that has to be brought. Va'afilu ba'al edim yom shloshim besof hayom, samach lishkir achama, makabim it a dudan, umakadshin yom shloshim bilvat.
So it was close to Shkia.
As long as they could get it in before sunset, that day 30 would be day 1. You'll ask me, so days of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, did they say Daven Musaf? Did they say Yalav Yavo? Like, what were they doing? Because they didn't know if the guys were going to come or not. And Takit's a good shiloh. Because in those days, they still were actually waiting. So it was besuffic. They didn't know what was going to be. That is all we have time for tonight. There is obviously more to say, but we'll have to pick it up next time we do. You can hand them back if you like. Next week, we will not have a shir I mentioned before you came because, God willing, I'll be with George and other members of the shul in Eretz Yisrael. So the following week, I am hopeful I have to check my itinerary is. I'm going to go to the Drapkin wedding, so see if the flight gets in at time. If it does, then yes. If not, then later in that week.
When is that? Drapkin?
The Drapkin is Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Shkal.